Hey everyone, today we're going to solve a problem based on Kirchoff's rules. If you remember, then in the last video I spoke about Kirchoff's rules and what they were and basically what they can be used for. Now I'm going to give you a more practical use of Kirchoff's rules and how to solve circuits using those rules or laws. Now, when you solve problems, like for example, if you take this problem over here, well, there are a few steps which I recommend you take when you solve this problem so that you don't make mistakes. All right, so, well, the first step, which is the most general step, is you identify the loops that are there in the circuit. So, in this circuit, which I want to solve, I see three loops, right? I see one over here, I see one over here, and I see one over here, right? And the direction you want to go in or whatever is all up to you. So when you solve circuits, when you solve loops, you have to take a direction for you to quote unquote like go in. Like you have to go in one direction to solve circuits. Um, how this should work, I'll let you know in a bit. All right, when we go to the third step. The second step is to figure out the currents that you'll be using. Okay, so using Kirchhoff's first law or first rule, you have to figure out how you're going to divide your current, which current is going to flow through which branch, and all those things. So, um, usually I take whichever loop seems the easiest or the most general to me, or in some cases, which loop has the highest voltage. In this case, I'm going to take this loop to begin with. All right, so I'm going to take the current over here as I1. Or I'm going to use small I to avoid confusions. I'm going to take this as I1 over here. And what I'm going to do is here at this junction, we know it's going to split into two parts, isn't it? So I'm going to take the current over here as say some I2. Then if you use Kirchhoff's first law, the current rule, you can figure out that the current over here is going to be I1 minus I2. Isn't it? Because the current entering should be equal to the current leaving. And if I add these two, I'm gonna get I1, right? Now, here, the current over here is also going to be I1 minus I2, isn't it? Now, as I keep going along this, as I go along this branch, at this junction again, my current is going to split into two parts, isn't it? So, um, I see three loops, so I feel comfortable taking only three variables. You can take more variables, but it might get a little messy again. So here I'm just going to take a third variable for my current and I'm going to call it I3. So then again, according to Kirchhoff's first law, my current over here is going to be um, it's going to be I2 minus I3, isn't it? I2 minus I3 plus I3 is going to be I2. And if I take this junction over here, this current and this current meet. So I'm going to have to add them both up to get my current at this branch, and that's going to give me I1 minus I3. That's going to be the same current flowing through this branch over here because it is on series connection. And if I want to get my current over here, I'm going to have to add this one, and that's going to give me I1. And as you notice, that was the current leaving my cell over here, this 10-volt cell. So in the end, it all works out and it's all correct. If my current entering into this branch is not equal to my current exiting over here, or when you do such things as well, if they're not equal, then you've messed up using Kirchhoff's rule somewhere. So the best way is to figure out whether this and this are the same. And now that this is done, I'm set to go. So my first step was to identify the loops. And my second step was to figure out the currents. Um, Excuse me for the bad handwriting, I guess. I'm working on it. Now, my third one, the third step involves me solving equations. Makes basically forming equations and solving equations. And we're gonna make these equations using Kirchoff's second rule, which is the voltage rules. Okay, so basically I'm going to form an equation to say and equate it to zero by saying the sum of my voltages in each loop is going to be zero. And so if my sum of voltages over here in loop number three is going to be zero, my sum of voltages in loop number two is going to be zero. In loop number one, my sum of voltages is going to be zero. All right, and a lot of people tend to mess up the signs when they form equations. So what you do basically is you're gonna go from left to right or right to left. Here I'm gonna go from left to right. Okay, when I say I'm going to go, think of it as a person walking along the circuit. So say there's a dude over here and he's gonna walk along this loop like a racetrack. When you solve equations, you're going to have to you're going to have two components which you take into consideration. One is a resistor and one is a cell. Okay, and the sign conventions for them are, I guess, a little different. All right. So, like I said, you consider a dude walking this way. Okay. When I say my loop, I'm going to go from, and I'm going to go anti-clockwise. I'm going to have a dude who starts over here, walks this way, comes up here, comes like this, comes down like this, and my screen is getting a little messy. Um, so when check out my currents in this loop over here, say in this branch, I have a current coming, a current I1 coming this way, right? So basically, the current is, oh my God, the current is in the opposite direction of my movement. So when I do something like this, when my movement is opposite the current movement, my resistor or my voltage across this resistor is going to be negative of 4I1. So I'm going to take a minus over here. All right. So say I go like this, I go like this, I reach this 3 ohm resistor. Again, my current is in the opposite direction. Here in this branch, my current is I3. This is 3. My current is I3 and my resistance is 3 ohms. So in here also, I'm going to have a negative 3I3 over here. Now I keep going. I reach a cell. Now when I'm considering a cell in the equation, I don't care about the current. No matter what current is flowing, I honestly don't care. All I have to see is whether I'm approaching the positive end or I'm approaching the negative end. In this case, I've approached the positive end, and I'm going from the positive end to the negative end inside the cell, right? So my cell is going to have a positive value. So not the volts. So I'm going to take a plus 5 over here, and then going. I reach here again. Now this cell also, I've approached the positive end, and I'm going from the positive end to the negative end. So I'm going to have a plus 10 over here equals to 0. Now that's my equation for the first loop, or rather the third loop. So for loop number 3, this is my equation. Similarly, for loop number 2, my equation is going to be something like, say I start over here again, or I start from here. Oh, messy screen. I start from here for the screen's sake. I go that way and I approach. The first thing I see is a 2-volt battery, a 2-volt cell. And here I've approached the negative end. I'm going from the negative end to the positive end. So I'm going to have a 1 second. I'm going to have a negative 2 as part of my equation because my voltage is 2. And then I reach here. I come across a 2 ohms resistor. And in this part, my current is I1 minus I3 and it's in the opposite direction, isn't it? So I am going to have negative 2 into I1 minus I3 over here at this end. I come down here, I come across a 5 ohm resistor, and my current is negative is I2 minus I3 in the opposite direction. So I'm going to get minus 5 I2 minus I3. I reach over here, this end. Here I reach a 3 ohm resistor. My current is I3 and it's in the same direction as I'm traveling in. So I'm going to have a plus 3 I3, right? Equals to 0 because sum of potentials should be equal to 0 in a loop according to Kirchoff's third rule. This is my second equation. Now my third equation for loop number 1. Alright, now loop number 1 is where where should I start? Which place has the least script? Here. I start over here and I'm going downwards, right? I do an arrow counterclockwise, so I'm going to go downwards. First thing I see, a cell of 2 volts. Positive is where I'm approaching, so plus 2, right? And then I come over here. I see another cell of 5 volts, but where do I approach? I approach at the negative end, right? So I'm going to have minus 5, right? Say in loop number 3, I was coming this way. I approached the positive end. So I took a plus 5 in that case. But in loop number 1, I'm approaching it from the negative end over here. So I'm going to take a negative 5. Alright? Now I reach over here, I come this way. I come across a 5 ohms resistor. My current I2 minus I3 in the same direction. So what am I going to get? A plus 5 into I2 minus I3 because same direction. I reach over here, I go this way. A 1 ohm resistor. That's a 1 ohm resistor. I'm sorry if you don't understand. My handwriting is horrible. So 1 ohms. I'm going this way and my current is in the opposite direction. Opposite direction. I1 minus I2. So minus 1 into I1 minus I2 equals 0. So this was the equation for loop number 1, and as you can see, these are the equations for my loops, and I have 3 of them. They're in 3 variables, so you can solve them. And oh my god, this looks colorful. Solving them is going to take a while, so I'm going to skip that. I'm just going to jump to the answer. So I'll see you in a minute. So after calculating, you get that I1 is equal to 9.3 amperes, amperes, amperes. So I1 is equal to 9.3 amps. I3 is equal to 1.9 amps. And I2 is equal to 3.63 amps. And that is how I get I1, I2, I3. But our work's not done here. In some questions, all questions probably, they'll ask what's the current through the 4 ohm resistor, or what's the current through the 3 ohm resistor, or 2 ohm resistors, or 1 ohm resistor, or so like if they ask for the 4 ohm resistor, we already know it's I1, so you can directly put I1 as the answer. But if they ask like through the 1 ohm resistor, you have to calculate I1 minus I2, and that is going to be our answer, isn't it? Now, in some cases, you might get a negative answer for current, and that negative usually means that our initial assumption for the direction might have been wrong. All right. So say they said here for 1 ohms we'll have to calculate I1 minus I2. In this case, I1 minus I2 is positive, so that means current is in the direction that we anticipated, right? But maybe I2 minus I3, in this case over here, I don't like this. Do I have another color I haven't used? No. I2 minus I3 over here, and this is how you solve a problem using Kirchhoff's rules, how to solve for the current and everything. And remember these three steps, they will always help you. So I guess I'm done, and am I out of time? I don't know. Um, we're done, and hope you understood, hope you liked it. If you do, I guess like the video, share, subscribe, whatever you guys do. Share with your friends. I'll see you in the next video. I should put in music. That's what I'm gonna do next.